Hello everybody, here we are today talking about if this is finally the year that the Anaheim Ducks trade John Gibson. But before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. Being said, let's get on into it. So Anaheim is actually having a good year and is on pace to have their best season in over half a decade, but there still are a lot of, talking points or rumors about guys that could get traded. Trevor Zegras is one of those as a young forward that is certainly entertaining, but injuries and poor production have kind of made it seem like he is on the way out of Anaheim. So there's one guy, but then another guy that we've heard about so many times is John Gibson, a goalie that is stuck in a time loop where he just is always on the block but never actually gets moved. But this year might actually be the year, and this is because he is having a great season. Best season since the 2018-19 campaign at 31 years old, despite the fact that his team is one of the worst teams in the league defensively at 5-on-5, at even strength and on the PK. And he's got the patience of a saint, to be honest, because I don't know how he's been on so many bad teams, especially some teams that have looked really bad in front of him, and he's continued to just, wait things out. I'm hoping that they actually trade him away to a team that's winning, but at this stage, though, it really does help out Anaheim in this regard because of the fact that his draft stock is rising, and this could be the time to actually move him. I think one of the main reasons that we are seeing this as the time probably to get the trade done is the fact that there is a young Czech goalie that is having a good year with the Ducks, Lukáš Dostál, that we've talked about before. And he does seem like he could probably be Anaheim's guy for the future, at least right now it seems like that. So at this stage, why keep on holding to John Gibson's contract and John Gibson when you've got maybe your guy for the future and you could get some good returns out of him? And I think that at this stage, you could probably get still a good haul for a goalie like, of course, Gibson. Almost said Dostál, that'd be crazy. But you could get a good haul for Gibson, and this is where you would say, well, I know that his workload has been, nothing crazy, and he's not seemingly a workhorse anymore, but I think on a better team with better defensive results, he could certainly be that guy. And for the Ducks, it just kind of makes sense to just do this now before something happens where maybe next year he's injured, like seriously, or has a really bad year. Because then with the way that the contract is kind of set, then you'd say, do we really want to try to acquire a 32-year-old goalie that's injured or having a bad year and that is soon to be a free agent, but we've still got a little bit of a cap hit to deal with? Now, I will say, to be honest, I think the contract is certainly not going to be a problem involving a trade. It's more about finding a suitor and seeing how things will go. And I actually think that his contract could be very attractive for a team that sees him as a good goalie for them for the next few years, because he's under contract for 2 more seasons after this year. But you wonder who could those suitors be, and this is where it gets a little bit hard, because a lot of the teams in the league, unsurprisingly, that have a bad save percentage aren't necessarily teams that are going to be competing for the playoffs. Colorado Avalanche are probably the first team that really sticks out of that bunch, but they've already got their goalies. They made 2 goalie trades. They got rid of their goalies from the start of the year and now have, again, their guys. So they're probably not going to make any moves there, and that just takes out a team that you really would like to make a deal with. Then you go to maybe a team like the Columbus Blue Jackets, where their goalie numbers haven't looked that great for the season in a year that's been, kind of a nice resurgence. But I think that here's the reality. Would Columbus actually want to trade any good young talent for a guy that is 31 years old? And that just, I guess, doesn't make sense to me, because you wouldn't want to give up any of your younger guys for a player that could be, again, out of the team within 2.5 seasons. They're not all in. They're not in win now mode. They still have plenty of time to deal with things as an extremely young side that is seeing a lot of these players develop at a great rate. And that's where I'm just like, I don't see them really being a good fit either, which leaves one team that certainly is intriguing and that has been talked about quite a bit, the Edmonton Oilers. And I think the Oilers are a great story here in this regard, because they really do fit that all-in narrative, and they've seen Gibson before plenty of times, obviously, within the division. This is one of those deals where you wonder 2 things. How do Anaheim and Edmonton come to a fair conclusion as to what they should get? And does Edmonton actually see him being the guy that could get them to hoist Lord Stanley? I think that there's pretty easy answers in this regard. The fair term, I think, is actually going to be able to apply here. You're getting a goalie that could probably help you out for multiple years, and the Ducks understand that maybe the market isn't going to be as hot because a lot of these other teams probably have their goalie situation settled. So I think it's pretty reasonable to imagine what could happen. And you also have to realize, too, that the Oilers really do fit this narrative on top of all this because of their subpar goaltending. Now, that's kind of a good thing in that regard, where, yes, they might have some issues in net, but at the same time, too, they're not going to be just, funneled into this where they couldn't find another guy in the market. They'd be able to do that. So I'd imagine that it would still be able to be done in an efficient way. And I know back in the day, the trades within divisions didn't happen as much, but that's not really as big of an issue as for whether or not the Oilers imagine Gibson could be their guy. Stuart Skinner, I really do love the guy. I wish that he would be able to find more consistency, but they nearly won the Stanley Cup with him last year. If they can do that with him, with all of his flaws we've seen, especially the past couple of years, this year or two, I would say that Gibson could be their guy with this group. I know the PKs had some really big issues over the course of the year where they were terrible, then they got better. Now they're back to being really bad, but a good year like what we've seen from Gibson going over to Edmonton with a team that could score more, I feel more confident about that in that regard, and that's why I'm thinking maybe Edmonton really is a team that could go out there and try to get Gibson. Now the question is, does a trade actually happen? I think that if it does, it's probably going to have to be with the Oilers. There could be other teams, and I would imagine it comes down to how aggressively the Oilers end up pursuing this deal. They probably would be pretty aggressive because, again, you don't want to lose that window. They do have a lot of older guys that are on this roster that are playing a big impact, and they don't want to let their opportunity slip past them. And Western Conference, it looks pretty hard right now, but for the Ducks, we've clearly seen that they're okay not making a move. Now, I do kind of want to know, I guess, how much of that is because of the fact that Gibson has a modified no trade clause, and I would love to hear kind of his end of the story when his career is all said and done, to see maybe if multiple opportunities came where he could have got traded and he decided he didn't want to go to a certain team. I don't know, but it's hard to imagine a guy that's been on a team that's been so bad for so long wouldn't want to be on a team with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and then other players as well that are possibly going to go out there and win their division, possibly going to go out there and defend the Western Conference championship that they had from last year, and possibly win their first Stanley Cup in a long, long time. So for him, I guess we'll see kind of how things play out. But I think at this stage of your career, you want to chase wins. You want to go out there and try to be on good teams. And we've heard this from other players as well, too. I think guys like Seth Jones is a great example of this. Not necessarily at the same stage of his career, I think, as Gibson, but is a player that's been on a bad team for a while now in Chicago and wants out. So with Gibson having a much more affordable and fair contract and being possibly a midterm solution or a very short-term solution, I guess, for 2.5 seasons for a team like the Oilers, I think that anything is at play here, and I'd say that Gibson might actually finally get to wear a different jersey for a different team, of course. But anyway, what are your thoughts? Leave those down below. Do you think John Gibson gets traded this season, and where to? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And Eagle of Hockey, all right.
Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.